July 15th, 1945. Northfield, Tinian. The heat here on Tinian. Christ, it's suffocating. 93 degrees even at sunset, and humidity that makes your clothes stick to your skin like a second hide. But that's not what's eating at me tonight. No, it's this damn mission we've been training for. 6 months of preparation, and still, I'm not sure what we're actually carrying in that bomb bay. Colonel Tibbets pulled me aside today. Paul's got that look again, that steel jaw expression he wore during those Ploesti runs back in '43. But this is different. He said, "We're close, real close. The weapon, they're calling it the gadget now. 10,000 pounds of..." What exactly? They won't tell us. Won't tell any of us. Just that it's big enough to end this war. I've been through 64 combat missions, seen cities burn from 30,000 feet, watched our boys go down in flames over Hamburg, over the Ruhr Valley. But this feeling, this knot in my stomach, it's new. It's like standing at the edge of a cliff, knowing you're about to jump, but not knowing how far down it goes. July 20th, 1945, Northfield, Tinian. The 393rd Squadron's been isolated from the rest of the 313th Bombardment Wing for weeks now. Our compound sits at the north tip of this god-forsaken island, separated by miles of coral and scrub brush from everyone else. The boys are starting to ask questions. Hard questions. Why do we get special treatment? Why are our B-29s different? Why do we practice with these concrete pumpkins that weigh exactly 10,000 pounds? Today I watched them wheel one of those practice bombs out to the loading pit. 2 concrete spheres, painted bright orange. God, they looked innocent enough. But the way the scientists handled them, the security around that pit, nothing innocent about any of this. Nothing at all. Van Kirk and I were shooting the breeze after chow tonight, talking about home, about what we'll do when this war's over. Dutch mentioned something about his girl back in Northfield, how he wants to marry her when we get back to the States. But then his voice trailed off, and he got that 1,000-yard stare. We all have it now. We're carrying something big, something that's going to change everything. We can feel it in our bones. Sometimes I wonder if they chose us for our records, or for our silence. The 509th Composite Group, 2,200 men, and not one of us talks about what we're really doing here. Not even to each other. Not really. August 2nd, 1945, Northfield, Tinian. They told us today. Jesus Christ Almighty, they actually told us. Atomic bomb. 2 words that don't belong together, but there they are, sitting in my head like a tumor. Colonel Parsons, Navy man with eyes like winter, stood in front of our crew and said it plain. "Gentlemen, you're going to drop the first atomic weapon in history." Atomic. Like splitting atoms, like splitting the very fabric of matter itself. The energy that holds everything together, suddenly torn apart and released all at once. Parsons said it'll have the power of 20,000 tons of TNT, 20,000 tons. That's more explosive power than every bomb we've dropped in a year of missions, all concentrated in one device. Bob Lewis just sat there with his mouth hanging open. Karen, our tail gunner, made the sign of the cross. Van Kirk. Dutch just nodded slowly, like he'd suspected all along. But me, I felt sick, actually physically sick. Because in that moment I realized what they've been preparing me for. What I've been practicing for? With that Norden bombsight, day after day, week after week. I'm going to be the man who drops it. 26 years old, farm boy from Mocksville, North Carolina, third of 11 children. And I'm going to press the release on a weapon that could kill... how many? Parsons wouldn't say. Wouldn't even guess. Just stared at us with those cold eyes and said, "Enough to end this war." Tonight, I tried to write a letter home to Mama. Started it 6 times. How do you tell your mother you're about to become... what? A hero? A monster? I don't even know anymore. August 5th, 1945, Northfield, Tinian, 2100 hours. Tomorrow morning, at 02:45 hours, I climb into the nose of the Enola Gay and I point my Norden bomb sight at a city called Hiroshima. They showed us photographs today. Aerial reconnaissance, taken just last week. Hiroshima sits in a river delta spread out like a fan between 7 tributaries of the Ota River. Population, approximately 280,000 civilians, plus 43,000 military personnel. Mostly women, children, and old men now. The able-bodied men are all gone, dead on some Pacific island, or manning the defenses around Tokyo. Colonel LeMay asked me to pick my aiming point, just like that. "Ferebee," he said, "where do you want to put it?" I studied those photos for 20 minutes, looking for the perfect spot. Had to be distinct enough to see from 6 miles up, centered enough to maximize the destruction. God help me, that's how they wanted me to think about it. The Aioi Bridge. T-shaped, right in the heart of the city. Perfect geometric landmark, impossible to miss through the bomb sight. I put my finger on it, and LeMay nodded. "Good choice," he said. "Most perfect aiming point I've seen in this whole damn war." Most perfect aiming point. For the most imperfect thing I'll ever do in my life. The bomb's been loaded already. They did it this afternoon, using that hydraulic pit they built near Runway A, Little Boy they're calling it. 9 feet long, weighs nearly 10,000 pounds, painted a dull gray-green. Doesn't look like much. Doesn't look like the thing that's going to change the world forever. I sat in the chapel tonight for an hour. Haven't prayed since I was a kid, but, well, figured I should start again. Chaplain Williams was there, said he'd seen a lot of boys come through before big missions, but never seen one carrying quite the weight I'm carrying. He's right about that. The weight. It's not just the bomb. It's everything. Every choice that led to this moment. Every practice run, every training flight. Every time I looked through that bomb sight and imagined what it would feel like to do this. In 12 hours, I become the first man in history to drop an atomic weapon on a human target. In 12 hours, everything changes. For me. For the world. For those 250,000 people sleeping in Hiroshima tonight, who have no idea what's coming with the sunrise. Jesus Christ, what have we done? What are we about to do? August 6, 1945, Enola Gay, over the Pacific, 0400 hours. The engines are humming steady at 12,000 feet, climbing toward our cruise altitude of 31,000. Been airborne for an hour and 15 minutes now, and the sun's just starting to show on the eastern horizon. Pale light filtering through the greenhouse canopy of the nose section, where I'm sitting with my Norden bomb sight. Tibbets woke me at midnight. Didn't need to, really. Hadn't slept more than 20 minutes at a stretch all night. Just kept staring at the ceiling of my tent, thinking about everything. About the training runs over the Salton Sea, where I kept missing the target until Paul figured out I was lifting my head at the moment of release. About that padded headrest they installed to keep my eye exactly in position. About the irony that the most important bomb drop of my life required a pillow to get it right. The briefing at 0200 hours was different. Usually before a mission, there's joking, nervous laughter, the kind of gallows humor that keeps you sane when you're about to fly into enemy territory. Not today. Dead silence as Parsons went over the final details. Weather aircraft report good visibility over the primary target. No cloud cover expected. Perfect bombing conditions. Perfect. Jesus, what a word to use. Karan's back in the tail, watching for Japanese fighters that probably won't come. Our escort planes, the great artiste and necessary evil, are somewhere out there in the darkness, carrying cameras and instruments to record what we're about to do. Part of me wishes they weren't. Part of me wishes no one would ever know exactly what happens when I... Can't finish that thought. Not yet. The radio's been quiet for the last hour. Van Kirk's working his navigation charts, giving Tibbets course corrections every few minutes. Bob Lewis is focused on the engine instruments, monitoring fuel consumption, oil pressure, manifold pressure. Everything normal. Everything routine. Like this is just another milk run to some nameless target in the middle of nowhere. But it's not. And in 3.5 hours, when we reach that T-shaped bridge in the center of Hiroshima, nothing will ever be the same again. Approaching Hiroshima, 0800 hours. Jesus Christ, I can see it. This city. Hiroshima spread out below us like a map, exactly like those reconnaissance photos, but real now. Living. I can see the river delta, the 7 channels of the Ota, cutting through the urban landscape like arteries. I can see the port district to the south, the residential neighborhoods to the north, and right there, right in the center, the Aioi Bridge. My aiming point. 31,060 feet. Airspeed, 330 miles per hour. The Norden bombsight is already armed, its gyroscopes spinning, calculating wind drift and trajectory. All I have to do is center those crosshairs on the bridge and let the automatic system do the rest. Simple as that. 43 seconds from release to detonation. The city looks peaceful. Early morning shadows cutting across the streets in geometric patterns. I can see movement down there, tiny figures that must be people starting their day, going to work, taking their children to school, living their lives completely unaware that death is approaching from 6 miles above. My hands are shaking, actually shaking. In 64 previous combat missions, my hands have never shaken. Not over Hamburg, not over Plousty, not over any of the oil refineries or aircraft factories or rail yards we've hit. But this is different. This is choosing to kill 250,000 people with the press of a button. No, that's not right. That's not how I can think about this. We're ending the war, saving lives. American lives, Japanese lives. Preventing the invasion of the home islands that would cost 1 million casualties. That's what they told us. That's what this is for. Isn't it? Tibbets is talking on the intercom, but I can barely hear him. Something about beginning the bombing run. My vision is tunneling down to those crosshairs, to that T-shaped bridge getting larger and larger in the bomb site. The automatic release sequence is armed. 15 seconds to go. 10 seconds. 5. The bomb bay doors snap open. I feel the plane shudder slightly as little boy drops away from its restraint hook. The nose of the Enola gauge jumps up nearly 10 feet as we suddenly lose 9,700 pounds of weight. Bomb away. Those are the words that come out of my mouth. Bomb away. Matter of fact, professional. Like I've just released another 500-pound general-purpose bomb on another nameless target. But this is different. This is 43 seconds that are going to change the world forever. I watch little boy fall away from us, wobbling slightly before it stabilizes and picks up speed. Dark gray against the blue-green of the Pacific far below. It looks so small from up here, so harmless. Just another piece of ordnance tumbling toward its target. But it's not, and I know it. And in 43 seconds, everyone else will know it too. Tibbets banks the Enola Gay hard to the right, a steep 155-degree turn that presses me against the side of the Bombardier compartment. We're running now. Running from what we've just done. Running from what's about to happen in the city below. 30 seconds. 20. 10. The flash comes first. Brighter than the sun, brighter than anything I've ever seen in my life. It fills the entire world for a moment. Pure white light that burns through the tinted goggles we're wearing. Even facing away from the explosion, even with our backs turned, the light is so intense it hurts. Then comes the shockwave. The Enola Gay lurches like it's been hit by a giant fist. Every rivet, every bolt, every piece of metal in this airplane rings like a bell. We're 11.5 miles from ground zero, and still the blast wave hits us hard enough to rattle our teeth. Then a second shockwave, reflected from the ground. Weaker, but still strong enough to remind us of what we've just unleashed. I turn around to look. Can't help myself. Have to see what we've done. The mushroom cloud it's indescribable. Rising up from the city like some kind of biblical pillar of fire and smoke. 40,000 feet high and still climbing. Purple and orange and black. Shot through with lightning that flickers inside the roiling mass like the fires of hell itself. Underneath it, Hiroshima is gone. Just gone. Where there was a city 10 minutes ago, there's nothing but smoke and fire and destruction stretching to the horizon. The Aioi Bridge, my aiming point, is invisible beneath the inferno. Bob Caron's voice comes over the intercom from the tail gunner position. My God, what have we done? I can't answer him. I don't have words. I don't think there are words. Return flight to Tinian, 1200 hours. We've been flying away from Hiroshima for 3 hours now, and I still can't process what I've seen, what I've done. The mushroom cloud was visible behind us for over an hour, a tower of destruction reaching into the stratosphere, a monument to what? Human ingenuity? Human destruction? The end of war? Or the beginning of something far worse? The radio messages started coming in almost immediately. Weather planes reporting secondary explosions throughout the city. Observation aircraft confirming complete destruction of the target area. Confirmation that the mission was successful. Successful. What a cursed word. I keep thinking about those people. The ones I could see moving around the city in the minutes before the flash. What were they doing when little boy detonated 1,968 feet above Dr. Shima's clinic? Were they at breakfast? Walking to work? Playing in the streets? How many of them died instantly? How many are dying right now as I sit here in this airplane flying away from what I've done? The briefer said the bomb would kill tens of thousands immediately, but they also said radiation, something about radiation sickness. People dying days, weeks, maybe months later from exposure to something we don't even fully understand yet. Van Kirk passes me a message from headquarters. Primary target destroyed. Mission successful. Well done. Well done. Like I've just completed a particularly challenging training exercise. Like I haven't just killed more people in 43 seconds than died in some entire battles of this war. The crew's been mostly silent since the explosion. A few technical discussions about fuel consumption and navigation, but none of the usual chatter you get on the return leg of a mission. What is there to say? What words exist for what we've just done? I keep looking at my hands. These hands that set the bomb sight, that armed the release mechanism, that watched through the viewfinder as that T-shaped bridge came into the crosshairs. These hands that just changed the course of human history. They look the same as they did this morning. Same calluses from farm work back in North Carolina. Same scar on the knuckle from when I was 8 years old and fell off my bicycle. But they're not the same. Nothing is the same. Nothing will ever be the same. In 6 hours, we'll land at Northfield. There will be debriefings, congratulations, maybe even medals. They'll call us heroes. They'll say we ended the war, saved lives, brought peace to the Pacific. And maybe they're right. Maybe this was necessary. Maybe this was the only way. But right now, flying over this endless ocean, all I can think about is that flash. That terrible, beautiful, world-changing flash. And the city that disappeared beneath it. August 6th, 1945, Northfield, Tinian, 1430 hours. The landing was routine. Gear down, flaps down, touchdown on runway A, just like we'd done it 100 times in training. But as soon as we taxied to our hard stand, I could see this wasn't going to be like any other mission debrief. Hundreds of people waiting for us. Officers, enlisted men, scientists, photographers. Someone had even strung up a banner. Congratulations to the crew of the Enola Gay. Congratulations. For what? For killing more people in one morning than some armies kill in entire campaigns? General LeMay was there, along with Colonel Tibbets and most of the brass from the 20th Air Force, smiling. Actually smiling. LeMay shook my hand and said, "Outstanding work, Major. Outstanding." Then he asked if I wanted to make a statement for the press. A statement? What could I possibly say? That it was the most terrible and awesome thing I've ever witnessed? That I watched a city of 250,000 people disappear in a flash of light? That I'm not sure whether I should be proud or ashamed of what I've done? Instead, I said what they wanted to hear. We accomplished our mission. The target was destroyed. Professional. Matter of fact. No emotion, no reflection, no acknowledgement of the enormity of what had just happened. The debriefing lasted 3 hours, every detail of the flight, from takeoff to bomb release to the return journey. Parsons was particularly interested in the mechanics of the drop itself. The performance of the Norden bomb sight, the accuracy of the placement, the visual observations of the detonation. Clinical questions with clinical answers. But nobody asked the question I keep asking myself: what have we done? What have we really done? The celebration started around 1800 hours. Steaks, beer, the works. The men were calling it the end of the war, saying we'd just saved 1 million American lives by preventing the invasion of Japan. Maybe they're right. Maybe this horror was necessary to prevent an even greater horror. But I couldn't eat, couldn't drink, couldn't celebrate. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that flash, that mushroom cloud, that city disappearing into smoke and fire. Around 2100 hours, I walked out to the flight line. The Enola Gay was sitting there in the darkness, just another B-29 now. The bomb bay doors were open, and a crew chief was doing routine maintenance checks. Normal post-flight procedures, like this had been just another mission. But it wasn't. And standing there in the humid Tinian night, looking at the airplane that had carried us into history, I realized that nothing would ever be normal again. Not for me, not for the world. We've split the atom. We've harnessed the fundamental forces of the universe and turned them into a weapon. And I was the one who aimed it. I was the one who dropped it. I was the one who pressed the button that changed everything. History will remember August 6th, 1945. But what will it remember about me? What will it say about the farm boy from North Carolina who looked through a bomb sight and saw a T-shaped bridge and made the decision to center the crosshairs and let the automatic system do the rest? I don't know. I honestly don't know. August 10th, 1945, Northfield, Tinian. 4 days since Hiroshima. 3 days since Nagasaki. And still no word from Tokyo about surrender. The reports have been trickling in slowly, filtered through military intelligence, and heavily censored. But we're starting to get some idea of what those 2 bombs actually did. The numbers they're staggering. Preliminary estimates suggest 70,000 dead in Hiroshima from the initial blast, with thousands more dying every day from radiation sickness. Nagasaki was smaller, maybe 40,000 killed immediately, but the destruction was just as complete. 110,000 people dead in the space of 6 days from 2 bombs, 2 single airplane missions. I keep trying to put that in perspective. The entire population of Charlotte, North Carolina, just gone. Every man, woman, and child in the biggest city I'd ever seen before joining the Army Air Corps. Wiped out in 43 seconds. And I was the Bombardier on the first one. The 509th flew another mission yesterday, 7 B-29s hitting conventional targets with high explosive bombs. I wasn't on the crew roster. Neither was the rest of the Enola Gay crew. They've got us standing down, probably for psychological evaluation or maybe just to keep us away from the press. Word is that reporters are starting to ask harder questions about the atomic bomb missions. Bob Lewis has been having nightmares. Wakes up screaming about mushroom clouds and burning cities. Dutch Van Kirk won't talk about the mission at all, just sits in his tent, writing letters to his girl back home. Karen keeps making jokes, the kind of dark humor that covers up trauma. We all deal with it differently. Me? I keep going over the technical details, the altitude, the airspeed, the wind calculations, the way the crosshairs lined up on the Aioi Bridge, the exact moment when the automatic release system triggered and little boy dropped away from the aircraft. I focus on the mechanics because if I think about the human cost, I might not be able to function. But I can't stop thinking about it. Can't stop wondering if there was another way. If somehow, someone, somewhere could have found a different solution, could have ended this war without what we did. They tell us we saved lives, that the invasion of Japan would have cost 1 million American casualties and millions more Japanese deaths, that the atomic bombs, horrible as they were, actually reduced the total amount of human suffering. And maybe that's true. Maybe this was the least bad option in a world full of bad options. But that doesn't make it easier to sleep at night. August 15th, 1945, Northfield, Tinian. Is over. Emperor Hirohito announced Japan's surrender this morning, Tokyo time. Unconditional surrender. The war in the Pacific is officially over. 6 days after Nagasaki. 9 days after Hiroshima. 2 atomic bombs, and the Empire of Japan has capitulated. No invasion of the home islands. No Operation Downfall. No million American casualties. The war is over, and we did it. The 509th Composite Group. The crew of the Enola Gay. Me. There's been celebrating all day. Men dancing in the streets, singing, drinking, everything they can get their hands on. The end of the war. The end of 4 years of hell in the Pacific. The end of wondering whether you'll live to see another sunrise. And I should be celebrating too. Should be drinking with my crew, laughing with the other Bombardiers, maybe even writing that letter home to Mama that I've been putting off for weeks. But instead I'm sitting here in my tent, trying to figure out what I feel about what we've accomplished. Pride? Yes, there's some of that. We were given an impossible mission, and we executed it flawlessly. The most precise bombing run in the history of warfare, delivered exactly on target from 31,000 feet. From a technical standpoint, it was a masterpiece of military aviation. Relief? Absolutely. The war is over. No more missions, no more combat, no more watching good men die over hostile territory. We're going home. We're all going home. But there's something else too. Something darker. Something I don't have a word for yet. Guilt? Maybe. But guilt over what? Over ending the war? Over saving lives? Over preventing an even greater catastrophe? The rational part of my mind tells me that what we did was necessary, even heroic. That the atomic bombs, terrible as they were, ultimately served the cause of peace. But the rational part of my mind isn't the part that watches that flash every time I close my eyes. Isn't the part that sees that mushroom cloud rising over a city where 250,000 people used to live. Isn't the part that remembers the T-shaped bridge in the crosshairs and the moment when I knew, absolutely knew, that I was about to change the world forever. History will judge what we did, whether it was right or wrong, necessary or monstrous, heroic or criminal. But history is written by people who weren't there, people who didn't see the flash, didn't feel the shockwave, didn't watch an entire city disappear in 43 seconds. I was there, I saw it, I did it, and whatever history decides, I'll have to live with that for the rest of my life. The war is over, we won, and somehow that doesn't feel like victory. September 1st, 1945, USS Duel en route to San Francisco. We're going home. The 509th Composite Group is officially disbanded, its mission complete. The men are being reassigned to various units throughout the Army Air Forces, though most of us will probably end up in the new Strategic Air Command they're forming. The atomic age requires atomic specialists, and like it or not, we're the world's first experts in nuclear warfare. The voyage across the Pacific has given me time to think. Too much time, maybe. 15 days at sea, with nothing to do but stare at the horizon and reflect on what we've done, what it means, where we go from here. I've been reading the newspapers they bring aboard at each port of call. The coverage of the atomic bomb missions has been interesting. Most of the articles focus on the technical achievement, the end of the war, the dawn of the atomic age. Some call us heroes. Others raise questions about the morality of using such weapons against civilian targets. But none of them get it quite right. None of them capture the reality of what it was like to be there, to be the man looking through the bombsight, to be the one who made the final decision, to center those crosshairs and let the automatic system release the most destructive weapon in human history. They make it sound simple, like it was just another mission, just another target, just another bomb. They don't understand that in those final seconds before release, the entire future of the world was balanced on the edge of a decision. My decision. I could have missed. Could have aimed for the harbor instead of the city center. Could have developed sudden mechanical problems with the bomb site. Could have found some way, anyway, to avoid dropping the world's first atomic weapon on a populated city. But I didn't. I followed orders. I did my job. I put those crosshairs exactly where they told me to put them, and I let the Norden bombsight do what it was designed to do. And because of that decision, because of my training, because of my skill as a bombardier, 100,000 people died in 2 cities on the other side of the world. The other crew members have been dealing with it in their own ways. Dutch Van Kirk has thrown himself into planning his wedding, talking constantly about the future, about starting a family, about building something positive out of this experience. Bob Karen has been writing, trying to put the mission into words that make sense. Paul Tibbets. Paul just focuses on the mission's success, on the lives saved, on the war ended. Maybe they're right. Maybe I'm overthinking this. Maybe the burden I'm carrying is self-imposed, unnecessary, even counterproductive. After all, someone had to drop that bomb. If not me, then some other bombardier. If not the Enola Gay, then some other B-29. The decision to use atomic weapons was made at levels far above my pay grade. But that doesn't change the fact that it was my finger on the release, my eye behind the bomb sight, my training and skill that put Little Boy exactly where it needed to be to achieve maximum effect. Tomorrow we dock in San Francisco. There will be parades, interviews, photo opportunities. We'll be celebrated as the men who ended World War II. The crew that brought peace to the Pacific. And I'll smile and shake hands and say the right things about duty and sacrifice and the necessity of difficult decisions in wartime. But underneath it all, I'll be carrying this weight, this knowledge, this memory of a flash brighter than the sun and a city that disappeared in 43 seconds. For the rest of my life. October 15th, 1950, McCoy Air Force Base, Florida. 5 years. 5 years since Hiroshima, and I still wake up some nights seeing that flash. Still dream about the T-shaped bridge in my crosshairs. Still hear my own voice saying bomb away, like it happened yesterday, instead of half a decade ago. The world has changed. The Soviet Union tested their own atomic bomb last year. The Cold War is heating up. The Air Force has created Strategic Air Command, and guess where they want their most experienced atomic bombardier? Right here at McCoy, training the next generation of nuclear weapons specialists. It's ironic, really. The thing I did once, the thing that haunts my dreams, has become my career specialty. I'm teaching young airmen how to deliver nuclear weapons, how to calculate yields and blast radii, how to select aiming points for maximum strategic effect, how to do what I did, but better, more efficiently, with even more devastating results. The bombs are bigger now, much bigger. The hydrogen bomb they tested last year had a yield equivalent to 10 million tons of TNT. 10 million. That's nearly 700 times the power of Little Boy. One bomb with the destructive capacity to level every major city on the East Coast. And they want me to teach people how to use them. Sometimes, the young officers ask me about Hiroshima, what it was like to be there, to be the man who dropped the first atomic bomb in history. They expect war stories, technical details, maybe some insight into the psychology of nuclear warfare. I tell them it was just another mission, another target, another bomb drop executed according to training and procedures. Professional, clean, successful. I don't tell them about the dreams, about the weight that settles in your chest when you realize you've just changed the fundamental nature of human conflict, about the way that mushroom cloud looked rising over what used to be a city, or the silence in the aircraft afterward as we all tried to process what we'd witnessed. I don't tell them because they need to be able to do their jobs. If war comes again, if the president gives the order to use nuclear weapons against the Soviets or the Chinese or whoever our next enemy turns out to be, these young men need to be able to follow orders without hesitation. They can't afford to carry the doubts I carry. But sometimes, late at night when I'm preparing lesson plans for the next day's training, I wonder what we've done, what we've created, what kind of world we've given our children. A world where cities can disappear in flashes of light, where entire nations can be destroyed in the space of an afternoon, where the weapons are so powerful that actually using them might mean the end of human civilization. And I helped build that world. One bomb, one mission, one moment, when I looked through a bomb sight and saw a bridge, and made a decision that changed everything? August 6, 1970, Orlando, Florida, 25th anniversary. 25 years. A quarter of a century since I dropped Little Boy on Hiroshima. The newspapers have been calling me all week, wanting interviews, perspectives, reflections on the anniversary. Most of them ask the same question. Do I have any regrets? Regrets. What kind of question is that? Regret ending World War II? Regret saving American lives? Regret preventing the invasion of Japan that would have cost millions of casualties on both sides? That's what I tell them anyway. That's the official answer, the one that fits the narrative they want to write. The heroic bombardier who helped end the war, who has no doubts about the necessity of his actions, who would do it again if called upon. But the truth is more complicated than that. The truth is that I carry Hiroshima with me every day. Not regret, exactly, but awareness, knowledge. The weight of understanding what atomic weapons really mean, what they really do, what they represent for the future of humanity. I've been following the casualty estimates over the years. The official Japanese government count now puts the death toll from both atomic bombs at over 400,000 people. 400,000. And that's just the ones we know about, the ones who died quickly enough to be counted. How many others died later, from radiation sickness, from cancer, from birth defects? How many are still dying? I try not to think about it most days. Try to focus on the life I've built since the war. My wife Mary Ann, my work in real estate here in Florida, the quiet satisfaction of a normal civilian existence. But days like today, anniversary days, make it impossible to forget. The interviewer from Newsweek was particularly persistent. Young man, probably born after the war, couldn't understand the moral complexity of what we faced in 1945. He kept pushing, kept asking about civilian casualties, about the ethics of targeting cities, about whether the atomic bombs were really necessary. Finally, I told him what I've never told any reporter before. Look, son, it was a job that had to be done. We did it. The war ended. That's all there is to it. But that's not all there is to it. That's not even close to all there is to it. The job that had to be done, the war that ended, the peace that followed, all true, all important, all part of the story, but not the whole story. Not the part about watching a city disappear in a flash of light. Not the part about carrying that image for 25 years. Not the part about wondering, late at night when sleep won't come, whether there might have been another way. I'll be 52 years old in November. More than half my life has passed since that morning over Hiroshima. I've had a career, a marriage, a peaceful retirement. I've lived to see men walk on the moon, to see the world change in ways we never imagined in 1945. But I'm still the bombardier who dropped the first atomic bomb. That's my place in history. That's what I'll be remembered for long after everything else about my life is forgotten. And maybe that's enough. Maybe it has to be. December 7th, 1991, Windermere, Florida, Pearl Harbor anniversary. 50 years since Pearl Harbor, 46 years since Hiroshima. And here I am, an old man in a Florida retirement community, still thinking about that day, that mission, that moment when I changed the world. The Cold War is over. The Berlin Wall has fallen. The Soviet Union is collapsing. The nuclear standoff that defined my post-war career is finally ending. And with it, maybe, the age of atomic terror that began with Little Boy. I hope so. God, I hope so. The world has built thousands of nuclear weapons since 1945, bombs that make Little Boy look like a firecracker. Hydrogen bombs, neutron bombs, intercontinental ballistic missiles that can deliver megaton warheads to any target on Earth in 30 minutes. The technology I helped introduce has evolved into an arsenal capable of destroying human civilization several times over. But maybe now, with the Cold War ending, we can step back from that brink. Maybe the weapons that were built to prevent war can finally be dismantled, and the world can move beyond the shadow of nuclear destruction. I've been thinking a lot lately about legacy, about what I want to leave behind when my time comes. It's not the medals or the commendations or the place in history books. It's not even the war that ended or the lives that were saved. It's the hope that what happened over Hiroshima never happens again, that the flash I saw, the destruction I caused, the terrible power I helped unleash remains a singular moment in human history, not the first use of atomic weapons, but the only use. Because if there's a next time, if someone else sits behind a bomb site and centers crosshairs on a city and releases a nuclear weapon, it won't be to end a war. It will be to end everything. I was the first man to drop an atomic bomb on a human target. I pray to God I was also the last. August 6, 1995, Windermere, Florida, 50th anniversary. 50 years. Half a century since I looked through a Norden bomb sight and saw the Aioi Bridge in my crosshairs and made the decision that ended World War II. The phone has been ringing all day. Reporters, historians, documentary filmmakers, everyone wants to interview the Bombardier who dropped the atomic bomb. They want to know what I remember, what I felt, what I think about the decision 50 years later. I'm 76 years old now. My hands shake sometimes. My vision isn't what it used to be. And my memory, well, some things from recent years fade quickly. But August 6, 1945, that day is burned into my mind with perfect clarity. Every detail, every moment, every sensation. The reporter from the Charlotte Observer asked me the question they all ask. Do I regret dropping the bomb? And I gave him the answer I've been giving for 50 years. No regrets. It was necessary, it ended the war, it saved lives. But then he asked something different. He asked what I wanted people to remember about that day, about what we did, about the world we created when we split the atom and turned it into a weapon. And for the first time in 50 years, I found myself thinking, not about justification or necessity or the strategic implications of nuclear warfare. I found myself thinking about those 43 seconds, the time it took for little boy to fall from the Enola Gay to its detonation point above Hiroshima. 43 seconds. In that span of time, the world changed forever. Not just because of the destruction, not just because of the lives lost, but because humanity crossed a threshold. We proved that we could harness the fundamental forces of the universe and use them to destroy ourselves. The atomic bomb wasn't just a weapon. It was a revelation, a demonstration of human power and human fallibility in equal measure. We could split atoms, but could we split the difference between security and annihilation? We could build bombs that could destroy cities, but could we build a world where such bombs would never be used? 50 years later, I think we're still trying to answer those questions. The reporter asked what I wanted people to remember. I told him this. Remember that atomic weapons are not theoretical. They're not abstractions or political symbols or bargaining chips in diplomatic negotiations. They're real. They work. They can turn cities into shadows and people into memories in the space of a heartbeat. Remember that someone has to drop them. Someone has to look through a bomb site and choose a target and press a button and live with the consequences for the rest of their life. It's not automatic. It's not inevitable. It's a human decision made by human beings. And remember that it doesn't have to happen again. The choice I made in 1945 doesn't have to be made by anyone else, ever again. The weapons exist, yes. The knowledge exists. The capability exists. But the decision to use them, that's still up to us. That's what I want people to remember. Not the technical details, or the strategic implications, or the historical context. Just this. It doesn't have to happen again. Please, God, let it never happen again. March 15, 2000, Windermere, Florida, final entry. I'm 81 years old, and I can feel time running out. The doctors say it's my heart. Weak, they tell me. Worn out. Like an old engine that's finally run its course. I've been thinking about this diary, these entries I've been making for 55 years. Started it as a way to process what happened over Hiroshima, what it meant, what it did to me. Kept it as a record of how that one mission, that one moment, shaped the rest of my life. Now I'm thinking about who might read it someday. My wife Marianne, maybe, after I'm gone. Historians looking for first-hand accounts of the atomic bomb missions. Maybe even people I'll never meet. Living in a world I can't imagine. trying to understand what it was like to be there at the beginning of the atomic age. If you're reading this, whoever you are, whenever you are, I want you to know this. I was just a man doing a job. I wasn't a hero or a monster, wasn't a saint or a villain. I was a farm boy from North Carolina who got caught up in the biggest war in human history and found himself in a position to help end it. I looked through a bomb sight on the morning of August 6, 1945, and I saw a bridge. The Aioi Bridge in Hiroshima, Japan. Perfect T-shaped target, impossible to miss from 6 miles up. I centered my crosshairs and let the automatic system do what it was designed to do. 43 seconds later, 100,000 people were dead. I've carried that weight for 55 years. Not guilt, exactly, because I still believe what we did was necessary. Not pride, because there's nothing glorious about mass destruction. Just awareness, knowledge, the understanding that actions have consequences, and some consequences are too big for any one person to fully comprehend. The atomic bomb didn't end war. It just changed it, made it more dangerous, more final, more unthinkable. We thought we were building a weapon to end all wars. Instead, we built a weapon that made all wars potentially terminal. I don't know what the future holds. Don't know if humanity will find a way to step back from the nuclear brink, or if someday someone else will find themselves in the position I was in, looking through a bomb sight at a city full of people and making the decision to press the button. I hope not. God Almighty, I hope not. But if it happens, if some future bombardier finds himself carrying the weight I've carried, I want him to know this. You'll never forget. You'll carry it with you for the rest of your life. The flash, the shock wave, the mushroom cloud, the silence afterward. It becomes part of you, part of who you are, part of how you see the world. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because someone needs to remember. Someone needs to carry the weight of what atomic weapons really mean, what they really do, what they really cost. Someone needs to stand witness to the power we've unleashed and the responsibility that comes with it. I was the bombardier who dropped the first atomic bomb. That's my legacy, my burden, my gift to history. I pray to God that no one else ever has to carry it. But if they do, if the unthinkable happens and atomic weapons are used again, at least they'll know they're not alone. At least they'll know that someone else has walked that path, has carried that weight, has lived with the consequences of changing the world in 43 seconds. My name is Thomas Wilson Ferebee. I was born on a farm outside Mocksville, North Carolina, on November 9th, 1918. I died. Well, you'll know when I died by the time you read this. But on August 6th, 1945, at 8:15 and 17 seconds, Hiroshima time, I dropped an atomic bomb on a city of 280,000 people from an altitude of 31,060 feet. And everything changed. Forever. Thank you for listening to my story, to this confession that I've carried for more than half a century. If you've made it this far, if you've heard every word of this journey, through the most significant moment in my life, then you understand something that very few people in this world can understand. If this diary, this record of one man's experience with the atomic bomb, has meant something to you, I'd be grateful if you'd hit that like button. Subscribe to the Chrono Diaries channel for more first-hand accounts from history's most pivotal moments. Leave a comment telling me what you think about the choices we made, the world we created, the legacy we left behind. And if you found value in this story, if you believe these voices from the past deserve to be preserved and shared, please consider supporting this channel. There's a QR code in the bottom right corner of your screen, or you can find the donation link in the video description below. Your support helps keep these historical testimonies alive for future generations. In the video description, you'll also find links to other series in the Chrono Diaries collection. Different voices, different times, different moments when individual human beings found themselves at the center of world-changing events. Each one a reminder that history isn't made by faceless forces, but by real people making real decisions under extraordinary circumstances. Thank you again for taking this journey with me, for listening to the story of August 6, 1945, through the eyes of the man who was there. Please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next episode of Chrono Diaries. Until then, remember, the past speaks to those who listen, and sometimes what it has to say can change everything.